Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2, where we are currently in position for our orbital insertion burn, and we are definitely a little early. We got here in just about a minute. That was really not so bad. So we're going to warp forward here until we are pretty much aligned with the prograde marker. That is when that burn time would want to be, but it has to be offset since this is a 1.5-minute long burn. So that'll be absolutely fine. We've got about 20 seconds here. How long until our apoapsis? Actually, we should be burning like now, technically. We should be burning a little earlier than this. In reality, if we know this is a 1.5-minute burn, then we should have burned at T-minus 45 seconds from the apoapsis. Would be the correct timing to burn this. So that's fine. We burned it slightly early, but that's not shocking at all. So we're just going to work our way through this orbital insertion burn a little bit, and then we need to decide which of our target locations we're going to. Honestly, I don't know. I might just flip a coin. It doesn't really matter which one we go to. So I guess while we're burning, let me do that real quick. Well, let's see here. Verifying that I am human. Yes, I am, I believe, human. I might be human. Okay, so I pulled up a random number generator. If it is even, we are going to go to lathe. If it is odd, we are going to go to elu. Pressing generate, and the result is 30. So we are going to lathe. Okay, sounds good. Now we know where we're going, and we're about halfway through our orbital insertion burn to boot. So that's fine. We can see that our time from the apoapsis is about 30 seconds at this point. Yeah, we definitely burned a little on the late side. It's okay. It's okay. We'll just continue to burn here. We're almost to orbital velocity, and we just need to bring up our periapsis to be an orbit, right? And we're definitely going to get an orbit at this attitude and timing, so it doesn't really matter how perfect the orbit is, quote unquote. So we are officially in orbit as of now, and that periapsis is just going to continue to come up. 100 kilometers. 120. 140. We can see our apoapsis is starting to go up a little faster. So we're probably going to call it good around 200 on the periapsis. We're at 180, 190, and we'll call this good. This is close enough. This is absolutely fine. I don't mind this orbit. So we know we're going to lathe. So we want to, either way, we want to burn, I believe, on the far side of Kerbal here. We want to burn prograde and push this out. Even if we weren't going to lathe, we'd still follow the same procedure. So we want to push this out and get this probably a little beyond the dress orbit as we have in the past. That feels pretty good for transferring over to Joule. Out of curiosity, I wish that the I wish that the systems were set up a little bit better. We can set Joule as our target here. And I would like to come back into our maneuver node. Where are you at? There you are. I wish that the projections were a little bit better here on where things would be at a particular time. But let's just push this out and see if it'll give us any indicator. Okay. It's not phenomenal, and I'm not surprised that the timing there is not perfect. That's deeply, deeply unsurprising. So we're just going to pull this guy back a little bit, and we'll sit this around the dress orbit. We'll probably circularize around here or so and do an inclination change once we escape here, which that's going to be about here. That's not too bad on the inclination change. Okay, I like it. Let's align for that burn. It's going to be a fairly slow turn, no doubt about it, but it's not too bad, really. Like, you can see we're already moving visibly. So as far as all that goes, it's really, really not all that bad. But we need to basically do a full 180-degree turn here. It's going to take a little while to do that, for sure. So I'm not going to make you sit through the entire turn here. We will be back once this turn is nearly completed, but it won't take as long as you think. 19 minutes and 40 seconds here. We'll see how long it is when we get back. So here we are, very nearly turned. We're not quite there yet, but as you can see, that took just over a minute to get us to this point. So it'll be like a minute and a half in total for that turn time, and considering that's a full 180-degree turn, that is not too bad as far as a turn time goes. We'll keep that in mind, but the turn time will just get better as we burn off this fuel. Keep in mind, this fuel tank here currently contains over 500 tons of fuel. That's a lot of fuel. No doubt about it, that is a whole lot of fuel. So we've got about 18 minutes until this burn here. I'm just going to let us turn a little bit further here. And you can see our electric charge is slowly going down, but I'm not too concerned about that. We should be in a pretty good state as long as we have power flowing from our RTGs, which we should the entire flight, and from our solar arrays, which we should most of the time. Cool. So about 18 minutes until this burn. We're still not quite in position for it. That actually surprises me that we are still this far away, but that's just the way that KSP2 works. Once you get close like this, it starts turning much, much more slowly. And I think that's because of the, what's it called? PIDs? The PID system that it uses. It's fine. We're going to warp from here. We're very, very close. And that's going to drop us about 40 seconds away from our target position. And as you can see, over that time, our electric charge fully regenerated. No shockers there. So we've got about 30 seconds here. We're pretty much in position. So I'm going to warp us forward. 20 seconds, 10, and 3, 2, 1, mark. So this is going to be about a 4-minute and 21-second burn with a required DV of 1753. Okay. I mean, it's a pretty hefty burn, definitely, to take us out to the dress orbit. A little over the dress orbit, I believe, was our target, was it not? Hang on, we're zooming. Yeah, a little bit beyond the dress orbit. Seems fine. 4 minutes, though, is a pretty long burn, of course, and I'm just going to warp us on through it at about 10x. Wonderful. So, we're obviously, our thrust to weight is a little bit low here for this burn, but I'm really not too concerned about it. This is looking pretty decent at this point. We're accelerating up nicely. We've got about 1 minute left on this burn. 30 seconds, 20, 10, and let's pull this back. 3, 2, 1, mark. That should be pretty much ideal. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, that's basically exactly where we expect it to be. So now we want to warp to here, which is exiting the Kerbal sphere of influence. Goodbye, Kerbal. We will be back. Well, part of us will be back. The rover is going to be remaining, of course, and a lot of this will be ditched on the way as well. So we are now in interplanetary space, and we need to go over to our ascending node, because I want to fix our inclination. So that'll be a relatively hefty burn, but it's only 1.2 degrees, so that shouldn't be too bad. And that timing is probably imperfect, but let's just bring this on down. That's good enough. 252 meters per second is fine. We can certainly have it be somewhere around here or so. 243 meters per second. I like it. So now, of course, we're going to have to turn to do that, but here in interplanetary space, we have so much time to do everything. We've got 27 days until this burn. So we've got lots and lots of time to do this turn, and we're going to be heading just up over here. It's just a 90-degree turn, so that's really not going to take all that long. I'm not even going to cut out this turn. It'll be fine. As far as our actual trip to Lathe goes, what is our target location on Lathe in terms of inclination? That is something we should probably figure out at some point. And this is, this is the Julian system here. Lathe is the innermost moon, and it is quite polar. Okay, it's very far off of the equator. So that is noted. we're going to want to come in on a virtually polar orbit. Okay. We're also going to want to land on land, unless this thing can paddle around in the water, which it actually might be able to do, the rover. But if we landed in water, I would expect this to tip over. It's really more designed to land on land. Very much so. And flat land at that. So that'll be interesting, considering we're not going to have much choice on where we land. It's going to be exciting. We're absolutely going to want to have our weight be as low in this thing as possible. No doubt about that. Lathe is going to be significantly more complicated than Elu. So it's probably good that we're doing this first. Because then we can just hop over to Elu and have absolutely no problem, right? In theory. It'll be a walk in the park compared to Lathe. So we're basically lined up here for this burn. And we can certainly warp forward a little further. I'm going to let this turn slightly more, but we're very, very close to lined up. Okay, we're lined. I'm going to call that lined up. We're going to head on over. We're about 20 days away. And let's get that inclination change completed. Okay, we can go a little further than that. That dropped us like 20 minutes away. So that's fine. We're going to get this inclination change done with no real problem. And we'll even get some circularization out of this stage, which is nice. 3, 2, 1, long seconds, and monk. Okay. So let's get this inclination change completed. Lathe is in, I think, a 0 degree inclination around Joule. We'll see if we can dial in something interesting, but to be honest, the way that the maneuver node system works in KSP2, it's a little bit unlikely. I'd be able to do it in KSP1 for sure with the maneuver node system in that game, but this one is just a little bit more imprecise. Actually, it's quite a bit more imprecise. 3, 2, 1, and we'll call that good. That should be a 0.0 inclination. It is. Beautiful. So that looks fine. Our next step, of course, would be to hop out to the apoapsis and circularize, because we're going to be heading over to Joule, which is, of course, not in an entirely circular orbit, but that's okay. I would rather be in a fairly circular orbit here, so that would mean bringing this guy out and basically just encapsulating dress. It doesn't have to be perfect, but something kind of like this or so would be okay. So that's 1877 meters per second, and of course half of that is going to be done with this first stage, but then we're going to ditch the first stage. So that sounds good. Let's align for this burn. This should again only be about a 90-degree turn, but we are going to have to warp forward 155 days. This is going to be more than that. This is going to be way more than 155 days. It's going to be a couple of years to get there, I think. That's okay. So, of course, we've got lots and lots of time to get this turn done. No shockers there. But we're in a good inclination at this point, and we've got lots and lots of DV. The actual landing on Lathe, assuming we get a reasonable location to land at, which is a big assumption, the actual landing will mostly be carried out via parachute. And that is fine, in theory. The question is, how are we going to do on that actual landing? It's gonna be real interesting, because Lathe is very much primarily water, and I think landing in water on this would be very bad. Unless we were able to keep it upright. If we were able to keep it upright, it would probably be okay. Can you start the engine when it's underwater in KSP2? I don't know. I don't know. So that's definitely an interesting concept. For our Eve landing, we might want to, because we're not going to be able to predict where we're going to be landing in Eve, whether it's going to be land or water, or I guess explodium on Eve. We might have to create some sort of a landing platform. It's going to be interesting. I don't know how that'll work. Okay, well, we're basically turned here. We can start theorizing about that, put it in the back of our heads, and just be like, that's an interesting concept. I don't know what it means. Maybe we'll get some ideas from our lathe landing if that ends up being a splashdown. Well, let's head forward. We are, at this point, ready to warp, and we need to get our circularization burn completed. So we're going to get almost exactly half of this burn done with our first stage. That's not too bad. I like it. We've got lots and lots of Delta V left in this, like ridiculous amounts of Delta V. And we're 3 hours away. Please warp further. Thank you. Now we're about 2 minutes away, and it really doesn't matter if we make this accurate or not, but we may as well. Okay, 20 seconds, 10, and 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and mark. Okay, so let's get rid of the remaining liquid fuel and oxidizer here. There's still over 100 tons of fuel in here, by the way. That's going to go away. That is the vast majority of our mass, and that is fantastic. And then we're going to fire up these nuclear engines and finish off the rest of the burn. So we're down to 730 meters per second left here. It's going to take a little bit to get this burned out, but that's okay. This actually seems like the majority of this burn time is going to be this engine. I think once we have these 5 engines burning, our thrust to weight will be significantly higher, right? If I recall correctly. Well, that's fine. We are currently down below 50 tons of remaining oxidizer, so that looks fantastic. Imagine if we put a second stage on this. Oh, that would be way, way overkill for literally everything. It'd be amazing, though. I would really like that. That would be hilarious. So we've got about 300 meters per second left in this tank, and that is looking fine. We've burned off about 2/3 of the remaining fuel now. 250, 225, and 200 meters per second left. Wonderful. So this tank is going to be going away, and you can see our orbital velocity definitely changing quite a bit there. No doubt about that. But we are about halfway through this burn, and we run out of fuel right about now. And there goes those nuclear engines illuminating the universe. That's so much light that they emit. Yeah, this is definitely higher thrust to weight. Okay, cool. So I want to make sure that our fuel is flowing correctly. Let's head into our resource manager. Let's see here. Yeah, these are the center tanks here. This is not a center tank. This is a center tank. Yeah, fuel is indeed flowing correctly. So that looks good. And we've got about 30 seconds of burn time left here to get this circularization done. This is, of course, the majority of our Delta V needed to get to our destination. Remember, the further out you get, the bigger changes you get from small amounts of DV. So this will be absolutely fine. About 15 seconds of burn time left. Let's hop in here and take a look at our current orbit. Okay, definitely getting there. 10 seconds left of burn time. I'm not sure that's accurate, though. I'm not sure that this timer is currently accurate. It's accurate-ish. But because of the staging event, I think it's slightly off. Yeah, very slightly, but it was slightly off. Cool, so that looks good. Now we need to find ourselves a location where we can burn and get a good encounter with Joule. That's not it. That is definitely not it. Let's bring this around, and we may have to take an orbit or two. Yeah, it'll be next orbit. Okay, so we're going to warp to about here. And we'll have to warp all the way around. We got to take an orbit here. We're not in a good transfer window. So that is fine. I'm not going to burn a crazy amount of DV just to get us into a better transfer. We'll just wait. Of course, in reality, what you do is you calculate this before you launch, and you launch into a good transfer window. And you have your Kerbals, or I guess in real life, astronauts, on the ground during this waiting period. You just launch when the transfer window is good. In KSP, it doesn't really matter all that much, and there's not really a good way to calculate when the transfer window is on the ground in the base game. So we'll just have to wait. It's fine. So around we go here. Of course, orbits are pretty slow when we're up this high. They do take a while. So I hope these guys brought some reading material. It would be rather awkward if they didn't. But it's okay. So around we go, and we just need to get around to this ascending node. I see that we're a little bit off on our inclination. I don't really care. It's fine. 0.1 degrees is okay. That's completely and totally fine. So the time warp is going to be ending here shortly, and we know that the burn will be probably around here or so. In fact, we can end this warp. It'll probably be somewhere around here. A little later, I think. Yeah, it'll be a little bit later than this. Something more like here. What's that getting us? That is dipping in really, really low. Okay. That's interesting. I don't want it necessarily quite that low. So let's dial this back a little bit, although it's pretty good. Other direction. Okay. Somewhere around here or so. That'll allow us to dip down to lathe fairly easily. The other option would be to just park ourselves right about here, so that hopefully we didn't have to worry about any interference from the other moons. Maybe we should consider going that route, actually. So that would mean that we would dip in about here or so. No, a little further. About here. We would have to change our inclination a bit. And we could certainly look to do that as part of this burn, I suppose. So that would mean that we would want to have this go more like that. It's still definitely an imperfect inclination, but it's better. Yeah, that'll probably do. So from there, we're going to need to change this inclination. We're going to need a braking burn around here, but that shouldn't be too big of a braking burn. This is very nearly already at orbital velocity. So that seems very, very good. Yeah, let's align for that burn. But it is about time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to do our Hohmann transfer over to Joule. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings. And a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Andy McGar, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Tommy Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.